Have you ever wondered what really happens inside the mind of a narcissist when you cut them off completely? When there are no more messages, no more calls, no door left open for them to return. They don't tremble because they've lost you. What terrifies them to the core is the truth laid bare. They've lost control. For an ordinary person, the end of a relationship brings grief, followed by a gradual process of letting go. But for a narcissist, the ending is never truly the end. Instead, an obsession begins an endless spiral of thoughts. How could that person be strong enough to leave me? Who gave them that power? Is there any way I can return and take control again? In today's video, we will expose this truth. You'll see why silence is the weapon that makes the narcissist unravel, why they never truly let go, and why you, by choosing to cut them off, have become the greatest nightmare of their life. Stay with us until the end of the video to see the full picture. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell, because here you'll find messages that will help you heal, grow stronger, and never fall back into that toxic cycle again. 1. The collapse of the illusion of power. When an ordinary person enters love, they long for companionship, understanding, and sharing. But for a narcissist, everything is defined by a different measure: power. In their distorted thinking, love is not about growing together, but who controls whom. And during all the time they were with you, they lived inside a sweet illusion. No matter what I do, this person will never leave. I can always come back. I always win. That was the unspoken contract. They imposed a chessboard where they always believed themselves to be the player moving the pieces. Every time they disappeared and returned, and you forgave. Every time they hurt you, gave a half-hearted apology, and you reopened the door, it reinforced their dangerous belief. I am invincible. But one day, you did the one thing they were never prepared to face. You shut the door completely. No more messages. No more sleepless nights waiting. No more tears or begging. You vanished from the stage where they once believed they were the director. And what happens when a play no longer has an audience? It collapses instantly. For you, it may have been just a decision, a step to protect yourself, to reclaim peace. But for them, it was an earthquake. For the first time, they realized the power they thought they held was nothing but an illusion. It existed not because they were strong, but because you once loved too deeply, were too patient, and believed too much in their change. And when you stopped, the illusion shattered. For the narcissist, that feeling is not just losing a relationship, it is like losing their last armor. For so long they wore the appearance of being untouchable, confident, proud, never admitting mistakes. But you, the one they thought would always stay, proved the opposite. And in that moment, they stood naked before the truth. They no longer had power. Picture a tyrant king in his castle, convinced his subjects will always obey. But one day, the people leave in unison, abandoning an empty throne. The king has no one left to rule. The power that once made him proud is now just a hollow shell. That is exactly what a narcissist feels when you leave them for good. And here's the paradox. The moment they think they've lost everything is the moment you regain everything. You reclaim your freedom, your voice, your self-worth, the things you once unconsciously handed over to them. This is the truth they hate the most. They were never truly strong. They only seemed strong as long as you reacted, as long as you cried, explained, or searched for reasons to keep them. But when you are silent, when you remove your energy from the game, they are left with nothing to hold. This is the collapse of the illusion of power, a collapse not announced by shouting, but by the absolute silence of your absence. And within that silence, they panic more than ever before. 2. The obsession begins. When the illusion of power collapses, a massive void appears in the narcissist's mind. And for them, that void is not the peaceful silence you experience. It is a suffocating obsession, an endless spiral of questions, assumptions, and calculations they cannot stop. The first thing they ask themselves is not, "What did I do wrong?" They cannot be that honest. Instead, their question is, "What made you strong enough to leave?" In their mind, you couldn't have simply grown strong on your own. There must be a reason, a person, or some force behind you giving you power. From that moment, an investigation in the shadows begins. They examine every detail in memory, your last glance, an unanswered message, a change in your tone. They recall every time you went silent, every moment you no longer reacted as before. In their mind, everything becomes a clue, but not to understand you, not to love you in any true sense. It all serves a single purpose: to find a crack through which they can return and reclaim control. And this is where you must be cautious. The obsession of a narcissist is nothing like the longing of a normal person. It does not come from affection, it comes from a thirst for power that was cut off. You were once their supply, a source of energy, attention, forgiveness. When that supply vanishes, they go into a state like an addict, deprived of a drug, restless, anxious, obsessed. But the obsession does not remain in their mind, it soon becomes action. They begin quietly watching you, perhaps not openly, but through back doors. A hidden account, a mutual friend, a casual message, just to test your response. They will look for any way to know. Do you still think of them? Will you still soften? It's ironic. The more obsessed they become, the more they reveal the weakness they once hid behind their proud mask. They may flaunt a new relationship, appear happy on social media, but behind the scenes, in the dark, they are tracking your every step. They compare, they analyze, they even imagine scenarios. If I send an apology, will they reply? If I pretend to suffer, will they feel pity? This is the true nature of their obsession. Not a desire to love again, but a fear of losing the power that once kept them alive. And when they find no way back, their inner turmoil deepens. You may not see it, because they will never publicly display their weakness. But believe me, in their heart, you have become an unsolvable riddle. And that is why you must remain steadfast. Because the more silent you are, the more you reveal the truth they fear most, that they have lost you forever. No cracks, no back doors, no second chances. Their obsession is not proof of love. It is proof of their failure. This is the moment you must remember. You are no longer the fragile person you once were. You don't need to react, explain, or prove anything. Let your silence remain the mirror that reflects their obsession. A mirror that forces them to face the truth. The power has left their hands for good. 3. The fear of being forgotten. Among all the fears a narcissist carries, none is more terrifying than the fear of being forgotten. For an ordinary person, when love ends, sadness gradually gives way to acceptance. They cry, they miss, but eventually they move on. For the narcissist, however, an ending is a different nightmare. If you truly forget them, what remains of them? You see, their entire life is built upon the recognition of others. Every compliment, every glance of attention, every ounce of forgiveness you once gave, all of it was fuel to inflate their fragile ego. But when you cut them off, when you go silent, when you vanish as if they never existed, they don't just lose a relationship. They lose the mirror that once reflected the false importance they convinced themselves was real. This is what keeps them up at night, imagining you living happily without them. You walk down the street with a calm smile. You post a joyful photo with friends. You savor peace without ever mentioning their name. To others, that's just ordinary freedom after a breakup. But to a narcissist, it's the harshest sentence. They no longer exist in your world. And it is this fear of being erased that drives them to find ways to remind you they are still there. They may send a casual message, bring up an old memory, or even flaunt a new relationship, anything to capture your attention. Each action is not out of love, but because they cannot bear the thought that you've truly forgotten them. Do you see the irony? They once dismissed your tears, ignored your pleas, but now a single silence from you is enough to make them tremble. Because silence means you no longer see them as the center, you no longer allow them to define your worth. The fear of being forgotten also pushes them to compare themselves to the new person in your life, whether that person is real or just imagined. In their mind, countless questions echo. Are you happier now? Did you find someone better than me? And the moment they suspect the answer might be yes, their fragile ego feels crushed. Yet, it is precisely in this fear that you discover your true strength. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. Simply by living on, smiling, and building a life without them, you do the one thing that terrifies them most. You erase them from your story. Remember, for a narcissist, your silence is not an empty void. It is a ringing alarm, a declaration that the game is over. And nothing wounds them more than realizing you no longer need them to exist. You no longer mention them to define your past. In the end, the fear of being forgotten is more than their dread. It is proof of a truth. You have truly moved on. Only when you are strong enough to keep living do they tremble at the thought of becoming a meaningless name in the story of your life. 4. The tricks to pull you back. When the fear of being forgotten eats away at their mind, a narcissist cannot sit still. They cannot bear the truth that you've walked away, so a series of tricks begin to unfold. But you must remember this. These actions are not proof of love. They are desperate attempts to regain control. They may start by pretending to be casual, a coincidental message, "I just wanted to see how you've been," or a subtle line, "I was just remembering an old memory." It may sound harmless, but behind it lies a trap. The goal isn't care, it's to test. Will you still react? If that fails, they switch to the role of the victim. They speak of pain, loss, or even invent tragic stories. Illness, accidents, depression. They know you were once compassionate, always ready to carry someone else's pain, and they hope that a fake tear, a weak sigh, will be enough to make you soften. But it doesn't stop there. When pity doesn't work, they shift again into blame. They might say, "You've changed, you're so cold," or accuse you, "You abandoned me, you're cruel." Sound familiar? This is how they twist the story, turning you from victim into perpetrator, forcing you to defend yourself, to react. And the moment you react, they've succeeded. Another common tactic is flaunting new happiness. You'll see them post pictures with someone new, wearing a radiant smile, accompanied by cryptic captions clearly aimed at you. But don't be fooled. True happiness doesn't need to be advertised. Their attempt to prove they are fine only reveals one truth. They are still obsessed, still using you as the measure of their worth. At times, they combine all these tactics into a cycle. Gentle today, suffering tomorrow, angry the next day, then boasting about joy the day after. The ultimate goal never changes: to provoke your emotions and pull you back onto their chessboard. So, what should you do? Not rage, not explain, not fall into the trap of pity. The strongest thing you can do is hold your silence and boundaries. Because the less you react, the more obvious the truth becomes. All of their tricks are meaningless. Remember this: someone who truly loves you doesn't need games to earn your attention. They come with sincerity, responsibility, and consistent actions, not performances that change like the wind. And a narcissist cannot do this, because their goal has never been love, it has always been power. So don't be afraid when you see them throwing every weapon they have to pull you back. In reality, that very moment proves something. You've already won. Because only when you truly leave do they have to struggle so desperately to get you back. And when every tactic fails, they are forced to face the one thing they fear most. You have stepped out of their control forever. 5. The futile comparison and replacement. When every trick to pull you back fails, the narcissist turns to a familiar escape, finding a replacement. Often this happens shockingly fast, so fast that you might be left stunned. They flaunt a new romance, a supposedly perfect partner who has just entered their life. On the surface, it looks like a declaration: "I'm fine, I've moved on." But the truth is the exact opposite. The new person is not love. The new person is an emergency supply, a temporary oxygen tank for an ego gasping from the loss of power. They dive into the new relationship not to build, but to escape the emptiness inside. And then, deep down, the bitter comparisons begin. They compare the new partner to you. They wonder, is this person as easy to control? Do they forgive as quickly? Are they willing to endure as much as before? And if the answer is no, Unease begins to creep in. The short-lived thrill fades, leaving behind a truth they refuse to face. No one can replace the role you once played in their life. This is the bitter paradox. They don't miss you because of love. They miss you because of the power they once held over you. No matter how wonderful the new partner might be, they cannot recreate that dynamic. And so, through constant comparison, you, the one they thought they discarded, become the invisible standard they cannot surpass. But this futile replacement doesn't stop with one person. Many narcissists spiral into a cycle of endless conquests. They jump from one relationship to another, hoping that one will erase the sting of failure. But the more they search, the clearer it becomes. The emptiness remains, because that emptiness was never about losing you. It was about the undeniable truth that their power has been permanently challenged. Notice how loud they are when showing off their new happiness. But real happiness doesn't need to shout. Their noise is only a cover for a quiet dread. That you are living well without them, that you are no longer affected by them. And here's what you must remember. You did not lose when they found someone new. In fact, it proves you've done what few can. You withdrew the power that once sustained them. And because of that, they're forced to run and seek another supply. But like an addict, every substitute is temporary, never enough to fill the void inside. The truth is, the harder they try to replace you, the more they reinforce one undeniable reality. They've lost. They cannot return to you, nor can they reclaim the old sense of power. And in the shadows of these new relationships, one thing continues to haunt them the moment you decisively walked away and never looked back. That is their real pain. Not because you stopped loving them, but because you proved they no longer have the power to define your worth, and no replacement on earth can rescue them from that defeat. 6. The truth they cannot face. Behind every power game, every manipulative tactic, every rushed replacement lies a raw truth the narcissist never wants to confront. They are not all powerful. During their time with you, they lived in the dangerous illusion that they were the center of your universe. That with just a look, a word, they could bend your emotions at will. And yes, at one time it was true, when you still loved too deeply, tolerated too much, and believed love could change them. But once you awakened, once you walked away and embraced silence, they were forced to face what they've always run from, their own powerlessness. This truth is so brutal, they cannot name it. Because to admit they no longer control you is to admit that the entire persona they built was nothing but an empty mask, and that terrifies them more than any loss. When you go silent, they don't just lose a lover or a companion, they lose the mirror that reflected their false importance. Without you, they are left staring into their inner void filled with nothing but loneliness, weakness, and fear of abandonment. Unable to bear that reality, they run. They chase new people, new games, new illusions, all to hide the truth that they were never truly strong. Do you see the irony? Someone who once made you cry until you were empty, who once made you doubt yourself, is now trembling before a simple truth. You're no longer there. They thought you needed them to exist, but in the end, it is they who needed you to maintain their false identity. And this is the moment you must hold on to. Your strength is not in arguing, not in proving who's right or wrong. Your strength is in silence, in the decisive choice that you no longer play their game. Once you leave the chessboard, every move they make is meaningless. The truth they cannot face is this: you have won not through revenge, but through liberation. You didn't have to destroy them, you only had to walk away, and your absence was enough to expose the reality they fear most. Let them spin in their own chaos. Let them stage new performances, because every attempt to hide the truth only makes it clearer. They no longer have power, and they never had real love. And you, the one who once endured, sacrificed, and forgot your own worth, have reclaimed the most precious gift, peace and freedom. That is the real victory. When you decide to cut ties completely with a narcissist, it's not just the end of a relationship. It is a declaration of life. You no longer beg to be loved, no longer compromise just to keep the peace, no longer wait for an apology you know will never come. You have chosen yourself. And that is the greatest victory. To them, you are their greatest failure, not because you left, but because you did the one thing they never believed you dared to do: refuse to be a pawn in their game. That's why, no matter how much they pretend to be strong, rush into new romances, or build up an image of "I'm fine" on social media, deep down, the truth remains. You have stepped outside their control, and they can no longer reach you. What's important for you to remember is this: silence is not weakness, silence is strength. It is the clearest declaration. I don't need to prove anything anymore. I don't need anyone to define my worth. I am whole and at peace, even without you. And that is what terrifies the narcissist more than any accusation or tear ever could. You may have once thought victory would be when they regret, when they come back begging. But no, the true victory is when you no longer hope for that, when you are happy with your choice, when you smile knowing you survived the storm and stepped into the light, a light no one can ever take away. And if you are hearing these words today, allow yourself to believe this: you are worthy of peaceful love, of a life free from manipulation, of a journey where you are the center of your own being. True strength does not lie in holding on to someone. It lies in having the courage to let go in order to find yourself again. Before this video ends, I want you to remember one thing: you are not alone. There are millions of others out there walking their own path of healing, learning to reclaim the power they once gave away. And if you feel today's message has touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Because here, every video is not just words, it is a piece of strength, of awareness, and of the freedom you deserve. Stay with us. Let each day bring you closer to the strongest, most peaceful, and most complete version of yourself. And on that journey, never forget, you are enough. You are worthy. And you never need to return to the place that once broke you.